thank you all for joining us today. So I am Sabha and I'm a PhD student as you already introduced me. So I am working on the ethnic minority entrepreneurship. So basically my work is more and specifically for the women entrepreneurs, but I have also worked with the male entrepreneurs. So I have experience and research for both male and female entrepreneurship from the minority entrepreneurs. So today, I will talk about very descriptive and very shortly about who is ethnic entrepreneurs, like who are come under this category, why it matters, why we are here today discussing the ethnic minority entrepreneurs. And the last is what challenges they are facing. So all of my work will be driven from the reports from 2020 to 2025. So what is ethnic minority entrepreneurship? So according to the UK census data, anyone who is non-white and are in minority in the UK landscape, they are not white and they are from the different ethnic backgrounds are the come under this category. So it's right where we can see these entrepreneurships, where they are existed. So you can see in the Glasgow streets, in the Scotland, they are basically serving those communities and for the Asian goods, like the corner stores, the taxi drivers. So there are a lot more sector they are serving, but majority of them are in the restaurants, takeaway. So very small and medium enterprises business run by these ethnic minority groups like barber shops. And why they are coming? It's because of the exclusion from the mainstream networks. It's because of the exclusion from the mainstream opportunities. And they are basically embedded more into the community and the culture networks. If you can see them, they are not very happily to take the any help from the formal institutes. They are not then happy to take the even the help from their own community members. They have the high startup rates, especially from the Asian and the Black. They have the very high startup rates. Still, there are the outcome shows that these entrepreneurs face systematic barriers. It's from the policymakers, it's from the banks, it's from the mainstream network. They are facing the barriers. So why it matters? It matters because first of all, they are contributing a very heavily economic contribution into the economy of the UK. So some recent reports say that they are contributing 74 billion pounds annually. Contradictory, some previous reports mentioned 25 billion. So there is discrepancy in the data and it shows like there are some informal ethnic entrepreneurship activities running in the market. So because the recent activities using the AI to actually see how many ethnic entrepreneurs in the market. So we really have to think about those entrepreneurs who are missing in this 74 billion to 25 billions. What are the activities in this? So why they are matter more? Because they are contributing into the culture of the UK. And also they are employing a very good amount, like in 2019 to 2020 reports, it shows like 3 million employees are hired by these ethnic minority entrepreneurs. So they are contributing in the economy. They, in the COVID time, the highest export rate are from these ethnic minority entrepreneurs. So this is why we are discussing here, because they are contributing economically. They are contributing socially. They are creating jobs. They are creating employment into the UK sectors and economy. So as here are some key statistics, very basic to show the general how the ethnic entrepreneurship looks like. So as I told, like 74 billions are contributing into the UK economy, but the really important thing which I want to focus is 40% fear discrimination from the formal institutes. There is a issue of trust. They have their built perception that we are not going to the banks and loan because they have like a history, experience from their parents, experience from the past generation, like we will get rejected. So they have some biasness, perceptions about the formal institutes, about the bank, like why they have the belief like our loan papers will be neglected, it will be rejected. So there are many reasons. It's not just like there's an issue of the bank, because these communities are not much more aware, especially those who are migrated recently to this country. Like you have to maintain the credit history. And On the second hand, what the banks are doing is the credit history for the white entrepreneurs is different if they have to accept for the loan, and it's different for the ethnic non-white. So there is issues both at the formal level, at the institution and banks level, as well as awareness to these ethnic entrepreneurs. So as we are already discussing, it also shows like in total UK SMEs, there is a 1 million from these ethnic entrepreneurs. Rest of all is from the non-ethnic, and these are white. So we really have to, even though they have a very high ambitions, especially the next generation who is graduating from the universities, to do a startup activities like in the tech or these, but they have like a low support. And it has been studied in this recent report, like they have the ambition to start the activities, but they don't have the formal support either from the universities and from the formal institutes and banks. So what we really have to understand, what drives the ethnic minority entrepreneurs to come into the business. So as I told, they are basically from the necessity, exclusion, and identity assertion. As from my own research, I have seen that mostly the women and even the men, they are doing the good jobs in the corporate, but they have might be some identity issue, religion issues with the corporate world, or might be they are not as valued and promoted as compared to the white. So that's the some of the main reason they have been excluded in the corporate world, in the education and their previous experience, that they drive to start something of their own, where they can show their identity, where they can show their culture. And also the other thing drives them is like they mostly have like a small businesses, family background. So they have been brought up in the environment where they have like a father and forefathers are running the small businesses. So it's like automatically generational, they want to go for the ethnic businesses. But the other thing is really understand is usually in the entrepreneurship, we say we cannot, it's not like a one size fits all. And I believe within the ethnic, we have the same. We cannot say like this is the policy and it's applicable and it's applied to all the ethnic entrepreneurship. No, there are layers. And the layer is this: race, color. The policy is different and everyone have different challenges when these layers are added. This is what we call the intersectionality. Like the black women have totally different experience than might be the Asian men. So when these layers add your challenges, it's not just the challenges, even your strategies, your outcome of business, what sector which you choose, it all depends on these intersectionalities, identity. You link these identity and then these entrepreneurs figure out what will be the best for them. So at the policy level, we really have to think about this intersectionality. It's not just like okay, this is policy for the ethnic entrepreneurship. No. Black women have different challenges. South Asian women have different challenges. They have different cultures. They have different norms. They have different restrictions. Some of have the religion restrictions, some of not. You cannot ask the Muslim woman to go and take a loan on the interest. No, it's not for them. They have the religion restrictions. So we really have to see like what the policy can do to tailor the sport and the formal need and program initiatives for these women as well as for others ethnic entrepreneurs. So what are the challenges really in the research? What the challenges have been highlighted in the research from these ethnic entrepreneurs? One of the main challenges is lack of access to finance. One of the, which I also mentioned in the previous key statistic, like 40% have fear of discrimination. And it's just their fear of discrimination. Other than that, research show like their application has been rejected more often than the white entrepreneurs. Also, they have limited access and they are not welcome into the white networking group. Even from my own research, I talked to the women and they told me like they try to be a part of the white entrepreneurs and they are happy, but they don't feel the connection, belongingness. So at the incubator level, training center level, we really have to think about what we can do to facilitate these women, to really grow them, to really support them, to grow into their businesses. And also there are some biases and stereotypes which I talk about, the fear, discrimination, the perception about the banks, the formal institutes. So these are the challenges they have faced in their journey. So this is also some of the statistic, as Black entrepreneurs are 4 times more likely to be denied for a bank loan. In the same way, it's not just the banks, the venture capitalists, the angel investors, they are also more rejecting. Recently reports show it's like a very rare and very small ratio accepted by these venture capitalists. They are just like for the tech or something, which they really feel like it will be very fruitful, then they will invest on those businesses. But as compared to the white, they can also support some other ideas. But for this, for Black Asian entrepreneurs are really missing into the venture capitalists and the angel investment. We really have to think about how we can involve this private organization into this, because we cannot put everything on the government. Okay, this is government, this is bank. No, there are many other reasons and there are many other sports which can be supported from the private businesses like the angel investment. And so we really have to think about the role of these private organizations to support these ethnic entrepreneurs. So moving forward, what we can do and what are some of the recommendation, some of from the research and some of from my own research is inclusion should be embedded into the policies and change must be structural. It's not just like a one person, it's a whole structure. Organization, banks, even ethnic entrepreneurs itself, they really have to change about their biases and stereotypes passed from previous generations. They really have to think about what we can do. So how we can make a connection, these formal institute, how we can trust them. So it's like a from both sides. Ethnic entrepreneurs also have to put the effort, but as well as the funding and the ecosystem need to be fair. It's either from the private or from the bank or from the government. So it's need to be fair and more transparent. What we can do in the future is co-design the finance program as well as the training program for the ethnic or entrepreneurs to whom for it designed. So we have to co-design with these ethnic entrepreneurs. And I really want to mention, it's not like there's nothing happening at the broader or at the government level. There are some projects working with this. So like the NatWest, HSBC, British Bank, they are really working now in this project like 2024 and 2025 to really co-design those programs, which is for those ethnic entrepreneurs. Like if it's for the South Asian, so they are like doing the studies as well as implementing those policies with the co-design of these ethnic entrepreneurs. So this is the things we need to be doing in the future to really design the program as well as the funding, what they are looking for the mentor, what they are looking for in the training program. So we have to co-design, as I talk about, to ensure that transparency and fair distribution from the banks, and to support the export training and trade access tailored for the ethnic minority entrepreneurs, even though they have like a very good name of ethnic minority entrepreneurs in the export. So we can really support them to like actually grow in their strength, to actually support them into their export businesses. And the last one is to acknowledge intersectionality. Don't it's like one policy and support ethnic entrepreneurs. No. Even it's like each ethnic groups, like the ethnic group from the Europe, ethnic group from the Asia, ethnic group from the Middle East, they have the different needs. And we have to be really acknowledge this intersectionality identity into the policies and into the banks and loans. I will end my presentation here, and now we will move to the more exciting part. It's not like boring is from this stuff. We have the panel member, and now I will call the panel member and they will share their day-to-day and the life experience being an ethnic entrepreneurs. So it's not just the challenges. They can introduce themselves, and now they will tell us about their challenges, success, strategies, anything which can be helpful for the policy and for the future policy. So I would start with Farah. So please welcome Farah, and she's a founder of Women of Color Networking Group. So she will share her experience. So please welcome Farah.
Thank you very much, Sabah, for having me and inviting me here today. And I was asked to create a small 5 short minute talk. And I'm thinking, 35 experience years. How do I put that into a 5-minute talk? But then I really had to break it down and think about the important things regarding entrepreneurship and experience. So I'm a self-made entrepreneur. What does that mean? Right, so I'll have to take you through the journey. I've made notes because it is my experience, and I'll talk you through my point of view as well. So, as I said, thank you very much, Saba. And my name is Farah. I am the founder of Farah Networking and the founder of Women of Colour Network. Two different networks, but they intertwine. I didn't realise they were going to intertwine, but they did. And I'll talk you through how that's happened. So my journey didn't begin in an office. I started from cleaning tables. If you know me, you'll know my story. I started from cleaning tables because that point in my life, I did not consider myself as a woman, visible woman, working in an office because I didn't have the confidence. And I thought to myself, who am I to sit in an office? So that was my thought process. So it started off cleaning tables and then worked my way up. And I have to basically cut this short. So I've had 20 years in the corporate world, working my way up the ladder. Not because I wanted a career and not because I was ambitious. It's because it was needs must. I had to provide for my family. And how did I know how to do that? It was really difficult because a woman who didn't know how to write a CV, who didn't know how to conduct an interview, had to find her way up the ladder. But it did teach me a lot. It taught me as I was going up that I had a voice and I was allowed to use that voice because a little voice inside me said, you can talk, you can ask questions. And I did. But my heart was to go, oh, pounding. What are they going to say? What are they going to think of me, right? Or are they going to think I'm silly because I asked a particular question? So that's how I went up. And it was all about survival mode. And when I started the corporate world, I was pregnant with my young son. And I was too scared to tell my manager that I was pregnant because I would get sacked. Just imagine that feeling. You walk into the office and you don't see anybody like you. You walk into the office and it's all white people. All different people who don't understand that you've got to survive because your husband doesn't work, because he's gone through operation that didn't go well through the NHS. And you had to make money and put food on the table. I wasn't going to say that I'm pregnant and lose my job. It's not until, obviously, as the months go by, they find out that you're pregnant. And I was going into the office and I was like trembling, thinking this is my last day. And I'm thinking, how am I going to go home and tell my husband that I got sacked because we're having a family? That's a lot of burden to take on. So it was not until COVID hit that I had to pause and I gave myself some space to reflect. And I think it was a great time for a lot of people that had to stop and think about their life, what they're going to be doing, what they want to achieve. So belonging was really, really important to me because when I used to work in the corporate world, I used to get asked, a lot of people will know this, is, why do you have to fast? You don't drink water. Oh, really? How do you manage that? And then we pray. We pray as Muslims, we pray 5 times a day. And we need the space at work to pray and to have that quiet space. When you can create a quiet space for mental health, and you can take 10 minutes into that room and by yourself, why can't we be allowed to have that 10 minutes in having a prayer room? So then again, I had to go into the office and ask for it. Why do I have to ask for a prayer room? Why was it not there for us? Because I was the only one. I was the one that felt left out and I wanted to belong. And it wasn't just about culture. It's not just about religion. It's about belonging in an environment made to be feel welcome. And you're part of that community. If you're not made to feel like that, you can't succeed. You just go in, put your head down, and you just get on with it. So that mindset that we can create culture, not just adapt, that's what led me to entrepreneurship. But it also led to more uncomfortable conversations. Why don't women support each other more? Why are we still afraid to speak? These thoughts kind of played in my head like a broken record. Used to wake up and I used to think, is it just me? Does everybody else think the same way? But apparently it wasn't just me. When you do your research, you find out that there's a lot of people in the same space thinking the same thing, but they don't know how to make that change. So I realised in order to make change, I had to change. And I had to change within. Because I talk about the root cause of a problem. And if we don't take the root cause and deal with it, we can't move on. We can't create structures because we'll have that jellyfish effect, like Andy Bound always says. So if you don't have the right foundation, we will not succeed. So our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, don't preach. Don't preach. Lead through change. And change, I thought, for me, was within. So that became my starting point. And I wanted to see better spaces, and I had to build them. So my work is more about education, and it's about empathy. That's why I created my first platform called Farah Networking. And Sabah, you actually hit the nail on the head when you said that women don't want to network within the white communities because you're not welcomed. And networking is a big, big word, but it's tarnished with the wrong brush. Networking is such a powerful tool, and it's an investment for your life till the day you die. And it's not about a black book, a who do you know. It's about those connections. It's about building communities. And I do have to add here, Junaid, just like what Junaid is doing with the Asian Scottish Chamber, is bringing those communities together. But even though you're bringing these communities together, there's a lack. What is that lack? It's that lack within us. It's the confidence to speak out. It's the confidence to have those conversations. It's about that imposter syndrome. You're thinking, should I be here? Should I be standing here and talking? Because I like to tell you this, 35 years ago, I wouldn't have dreamt of doing what I'm doing because I didn't have the confidence and I didn't have the voice. So because Farah Networking created, and I help organisations, I help public sector, I help women individual how to network. Because visibility is not about ego, it's about impact. Your visibility is the impact you create for future generations and for yourself as well. And people think, oh, it's all about networking, how do we do it? But it's an art. And unfortunately, universities, institutions don't teach that within the business schools because they think, oh, once it's out, they'll learn how to do it. And a lot of time it's just tick box exercises. So through my networking, I just love how things just intertwined. I built a pool of coaches that I work with, right? We deliver programs that work from the inside out. And we cover cultural competence, mental health, confidence, public speaking, networking, allyship. Allyship. Why am I repeating this word? The reason why that is that women need women to support each other. We need allyship. We need them to understand our problems. We need to understand what we go through. And Sabah, again, I'm going to say you pointed out the word mother-in-law in cultures. We have a big thing about mother-in-laws. We have women who want to work, but they can't work because of cultural barriers, right? So how do we bring those women into the workforce who are absolutely amazing, but they don't have the confidence? Okay. So I use the platform to speak up for those who feel silenced. I share their stories, break stigma, not for the sake of it, but because of action. We want to make action. So in a nutshell, just tell me when my time's up. I've delivered, I can go on. Okay, so I've delivered workshops at the University of York, Bank of Scotland, Asian Business Chambers, Muslim Council Britain, and I also hosted the WENS National Conference with over 250 higher education women, and I would never have dreamt that. Never have dreamt that. And it was such an honour. So I continue to work with institutions, organisations and the public sector, not just to talk about diversity, but to make it felt. Make it important and not a tick box exercise. Representation, especially in higher education, matters. It matters deeply to me because women of colour in academia carry so much burden on their shoulders that often the quiet engines behind the progress, innovation, and student well-being. And I'll go back to that problem, the root. If we don't have women of colour representing, they don't have the confidence, they don't have the ability, how can they help our future generation? What are institutions doing to help these women create a space for them and they work together? So it's important that we truly, truly invest in our leaders. I'd like to share a story. I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories, but I do have to tell you this story. My son started his first year at Imperial College in London, and he said to me, "Mum, I don't belong. I'm a Muslim boy from a state school, born in a middle-class family, and everyone else seems here to be have a more privileged background." That hit me hard. He's bright, driven, and deserving, but he even couldn't see himself at that place. So that's where that's why I created Women of Colour Network. So because when we amplify voices that have been historically silenced, we don't just curate change, we redefine the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Siba. So a brief introduction about what I do. My name is Junaid Ashraf. I am the co-founder of the Scottish Asian Business Chamber. We are Scotland's largest diverse business organisation. It's our mission to drive Scotland's economic growth by connecting diverse communities to mainstream opportunities. And it's our vision to redefine what it means to be a Scottish Asian entrepreneur with pride, purpose and power. Very briefly, we have two main pillars, which are business owners and startups. We have about 800 business owners who are 6-figure to 9-figure, about £300,000 to about 500 million, but he's obviously an outlier. And we have about 45 tech and growth founders from pre-revenue to about 500k per year. We also have 3 leadership networks across women, sports and creative. And today when we get to the questions, I'll speak about how we established the Aspire Asian Women's Network.
Hi everyone, I'm Adarsh Bahardaj. I'm the founder of Regeno. We're developing a novel flat pack and modular wind turbine. Our ambition is to lower the cost of wind energy by 60% and empower business owners such as farmers, distilleries and factories to own their energy. My journey started out 10 years ago when my dad started his own business as well. And just through also kind of, as mentioned, struggles in terms of getting employment and stuff. So he thought that was the only way out. And then that's where I got inspired, did my engineering at the University of Strathclyde, mechanical and aerospace engineering. And yeah, that's where I realized, I need to also do the same because I found similar struggles in terms of employment. Well, not in terms of employment, but, in the world of work, I thought, there was various issues and stuff. And I just felt empowered to then have my own business, take ownership and make the difference as well. So yeah, thank you.
That's really good. First of all, thank you so much, Sabah, for inviting me over here. It's a pleasure to be part of such change makers. My journey started when I was a college grad student back in India. I started at a very core level of providing meals to the slum people so that we could fill in those gaps that everyone gets a meal a day. When we were having a word there, we saw that everyone lacks knowledge, and majorly knowledge around finance. They don't know how to manage money. They would just go out, work, get a paycheck, and feed their families. They would not know how to plan their futures ahead. Cut short, I was trying to work on a very grassroots level, at a very small level back at home. But when I came here for my masters, I saw that this is not just a problem in India; it's a global problem. In such a developed country like here, people live from paycheck to paycheck, and that's what triggered me. And I met my co-founder, Rakshit Jain over here, and we decided we want to solve this problem at a very mass level, and hence tech was the medium. So we decided to form FinWise School, which is a platform that makes financial literacy fun, gamified, and personalized. You can go out, read a traditional book, and say, "Oh, yeah, I got some financial knowledge." But is it really personalized to your level? Is it really personalized to your journey? Are you even okay with that knowledge? That's where we thought we would need to make something that is personalized to your goal, your financial goals, your financial journey, how you manage it for yourself. So we are still in the process of making it at the moment, but we are hoping that we follow the lines and we are all set to launch it in September. So fingers crossed on that one. I am very new to this space. I am just over a year into the entrepreneurship background, but it's challenging and it's fun. So I'm enjoying every part of it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monique Wong, and I work at GA Europe as a Senior Business Development Manager, supporting young people to kind of build the mindset and skill set to be thriving in the communities and where they are. And so when we talk about equipping young people, we always start them young. So one of the key components that we have is called the company program, which is starting them in like age 15 to 18. So in high school, that they actually go through the whole business cycle from like an idea all the way to liquidation of the company. So they go through in the academic year, the whole business cycle. And we work with young people from all different age groups, even in university level as well. And in that occasion, that's where we believe entrepreneurship can start young. And that with that, we build in the exposure for them as well as the confidence, and also with the mentorship that we have with all the business partners that we work with. They also give them the insights of what like the future of work looks like. Overall, in the work that I do, I try to kind of leverage the local school authorities with the schools to make sure that it's a sustainable program so that the teachers are the part of the ecosystem to make that program sustainable. And also, overall, we believe that 87% of young people, according to the Herald 2024, said young people want to start their own business. So I think this is the great starting ground for everyone who's interested to build their own dreams and be a better influence for the world to come, a starting point. So thank you for having me here.
See, for example, I spoke to others a few minutes before starting all of this, and you mentioned about how you had so many connections. I think this is also about networking and at the same time putting yourself out. How you had so many connections and they kind of said, okay, we'll email you, but you kind of got ghosted. So what do you think is the main issue? Why people, a lot of times when they have the potential to help you, but at the end of the day, you get ghosted. What are the reasons and how can we fix that?
Is this question specifically for me? Because I think maybe other people can also answer it. So, yeah. Sounds good. So I think in terms of that, it just depends, because what I found in my experience is just networking events in general, there can be a lot of like bias and unconscious bias because most people are there with an agenda, right? And they want something out of it, which is fair, right? You can't blame them for that. But I think what I've found personally in my experience is the way that comes off can be sometimes, like very direct or, rude from the other individual, in my opinion. Or when you're talking to them, all you're asking for is 10 seconds and, they'll just be looking away around to someone else more exciting in the room, for example, and then if you do get a card and then they'll just ignore you, they'll just say it just to keep you happy, but internally perhaps they'll have their own biases, etc. Right? So that's something that I or perhaps we can't solve, because that's the person the voice within them is saying that this person is not important to me, or I do not want to, or I do not see this person as a potential. Or even when I try and speak to investors, right, perhaps because of whatever biases internally they have, right, they just think, oh, maybe he's just less capable. And that's something I've experienced in general, just throughout uni and stuff, perhaps through societies I was in. You know, I wasn't given the leadership experiences or positions, even though I worked perhaps twice as hard as some other people, or even at work. So I think they're there, and I think a lot of the times they're subtle because some of the people don't want to make them come across too direct. So they'll just, and I've spoken to other diverse individuals as well, and they've said the same thing. You know, it's never like direct racism, if that's what you want to call it. It's always like subtle and very passive, like they won't make eye contact with you, you know, or they'll, you know, cut the conversation short. So it's stuff like that. So I think I'm going on a bit of a tangent to your question, but it's just, I guess it's through various forms of like education and enlightenment. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if some people are just going to be like that, you can't fix it. It's just a case of speaking to more people that you connect with and align with, and then just, instead of like trying to fit into the wrong place, just find the community that you fit into, right? So yeah, that's where I found the business chamber was amazing, because you're all seen as equals, and everyone was given a fair opportunity and a chance for both a conversation, for a connection. So sometimes it's just a case of being, you know, in a different place, the right place for you as well, as much as that. Go for it.
So, how would you define the right space? Because a lot of times, for example, I am the founder of a wellness brand, and I've got this idea of connecting to a wider community. I want to spread internationally, and for that purpose, I want to connect to everyone, not just Asian. For me, everyone is a customer, everyone is a client. So, just to make myself confined to one department, wouldn't that be kind of saying you do not belong here in some ways, while also encouraging you to grow your business? How is that possible? It's kind of like two opposites.
I see what you mean, yeah. So I should like kind of explain where I was coming from. It's not to say that you don't belong there. What I'm saying is specific individuals have their biases that you just cannot cure, right? So what the best thing is to do is to avoid those negative, and in my experience, right, and that might not be the same experience for everyone, is to find the right people that give you positive energy that you can build upon, right? So for me, that was the Asian Business Chamber. For me, it was Inspire, right? Which is like, you know, it's not a diverse specific, right? Inspire is open to everyone, right? Ages, genders, etc. So it's about finding those spaces first to start off with. That gives you that confidence, right? And then you build upon that. Because for me, I found like my confidence went down when I attended these like kind of generic networking events, which then had a negative impact. So now from the chamber, from the Inspire, right, attending those more welcoming events, even though I do go to those, you know, more biased events. I don't want to call them biased events, but you know, attending those certain areas, I feel like I just have a bit more confidence in myself because of the confidence all of you guys have given me, right? So now it doesn't really matter if someone doesn't want to talk to me. That's fine. You know, I'm okay with that, but I'll still convey my message. I'll still sell my business. I'll still promote my brand because I've been given that confidence from these spaces. So yeah, I think go for it. You know, don't be afraid of promoting your brand, and just don't worry about other people's opinion. It was just my journey was that I needed that confidence from the likes of Business Chamber and Inspire to be able to get that confidence and say that these people who want to ignore me don't matter. But everyone's journey is different, right? So I'm just speaking from my perspective.
I think I would like to add is that if you're outreaching on any networking event, sometimes it's also be specific on your request. So if you say you want to just connect on what, for what, like they need to understand the why to understand the purpose and the time spent. So like if you want to be very targeted, be targeted on that request. Say if you're asking them for funding, or are you asking them for a referral to another person, or for that market that you're asking for. So be specific so that they know the time investment, because what if they come in and say that like I can help you, but on something that they don't feel comfortable. So you kind of build that support network for them to say, okay, I can just refer and give you an email or referral. There you go. 3 seconds. I can definitely do that. But if you are not specific enough, it's sometimes a bit too vague for them to be supportive. Not that they don't want to. So I think if you ask me for a number, I can give you directly. But if you ask me for like, do you have time to talk? I'm like, I don't know. So I think that could be one specific component, like just to be clear on what you're asking for and just be persistent. Sometimes I remember that I need to respond to you, but forgot. And so that could be two components. So it might not be personal. It could be, but maybe just be more targeted and like, or sometimes even it's like if you want to connect to that person for a specific reason, for either for your business and what growth or like a mentorship or something. So just say like, would you be willing to be my mentor? I don't have time, sorry. Maybe this lady that I know can do it. So I think that would build your network in that specific way because you're so targeted.
Can I add on to that as well? I always talk about quality over quantity, and it's the type of people that you meet. My networking doesn't start with direct asking a question. My networking starts with building a connection first. Once you've built that connection, you leave the door open. And then when I talk about visibility, because visibility is about the impact, what work are you showcasing for that third person to see they want to work with you? So you want to be in a position that they come to you, then you go to them. Yes, is it a lot of work? Of course it is. Is it worth it? Absolutely. And that's how I got business, is through building those connections. And sometimes when you're at networking events, and you need to have clarity on what you want, just like what Monique said. But if you've got a name of 5 people that you want to connect with, and you know that person that they'll be at that networking event, then you can go up and you've done your research and you speak to them. But then they might not be the person that you need to speak to, but then you could ask the question, who do you know that can help me get funding, or that can help me, whatever it is. So that's why I've done it, through experience.
Okay, thank you for your answer. So I have also a question. So if you have to, like in one line, if you have to, from your overall the experience, what is the one barrier you face as an ethnic entrepreneur, one by one? Like what is the barrier we should know as a university and as an audience, what we should know, like one barrier each of you as an ethnic entrepreneurs, like the Adrash, he mentioned about the indirect or passive discrimination in the career or workplace. So rest of all, Junaid, Simran, Monica, and Farah, what is the barrier as an ethnic entrepreneur you feel when you are in the mainstream business landscape? So please, Junaid, you share the one barrier you think like we should know, like this is the one barrier you face in your journey. Or
I would say come from a Asian business chamber sort of organization. The thing I would say is infrastructure, which is the lack of ability for different sort of sections of groups, communities, being able to collect with one another and then interact with sort of mainstream organizations. But just a caveat, and I know you said one sentence, so I'm not going to go on for but as an I would say a lot of that needs to come from the communities themselves. I think the roles of individuals who may be watching this is that that when an organization like that does approach you, is to assist when you can. But what I would say to the diverse communities though is that it does come first and foremost from ourselves, that we need to build the communities and infrastructures to engage with mainstream organizations rather than also that's good enough.
great, thank you. And Simran, what do you think? What is like you face any barrier you want to mention? Like what the barrier you face in your journey? You are in the start of the business, so what the barriers and challenges as an ethnic entrepreneur you face?
I think as an entrepreneur, we face barriers every single day, and we just find out new ways to solve those and overcome those barriers. But the one which I have felt the most is inclusivity, I would say. I don't want to be in a place that where I have people of my color. I am very much the only brown person in a room, and I am in a group of a very diverse people. I just want to be acknowledged for who I am and being taken account for what I say, rather than what color of my skin is when I'm saying it. So inclusivity is something that I think is the biggest barrier, and I think we are taking the right steps, such as events like these, to overcome those as a economy as a whole.
Great, thank you. So Monica, what do you say? What's your experience? Is anything you want to add on this?
I believe it's the exposure that you get as a person who might not have seen the same as other people who like might have gone traveling a lot more or not. So I think exposure and also confidence just to be speaking of your voice in a space that everyone looks different to you generally. But yeah, exposure will be something I think that you know what is out there available.
Okay. Just it's hard to explain that in a word, in a sentence, but for me it's been acceptance, knowledge, resources and funds. That was the barriers for me. Great. And so as the Simran, you talk about the inclusive entrepreneurship. So what do you think how the inclusive entrepreneurship support system should look like? How it should it look like in the overall ecosystem of the business? Do you have any idea like this is how the policymaker or the future programs should include the factor of inclusiveness into their programs? Do you have any idea like what it should be truly look like, the inclusive entrepreneurship?
I mean, it is really the change maker's job, but yeah, I'll give my take on that one. Inclusivity is about creating a safe space where you can share an idea that's just an idea in your mind, which has the potential of making itself into $1 million company, let's say, or even creating a small business which can affect even the life of one person. Inclusivity can be more on the lines of feeling that safe space, not based on, like I mentioned before, based on the color of my skin, but on the idea that I have. Great minds do not have any color. It's the great mind that has that idea. So I think inclusivity can be introduced by not putting someone on the spot, but giving spots to everyone. I think that would be my take on that. I'm so sorry.
No,
That does not answer your question.
the question. Yeah, thank you. So I really want now we talk about challenges. Now, what do you think as a strength as an ethnic entrepreneurships? Because it's not just like the challenges. What do you think like you have the strength and skill because of the ethnic entrepreneurs? Because from my research, I have just not put the focus on the challenges. No, it's not like they are disadvantaged or not. We have to show the bright side, like what they are actually growing, how they are growing. So what are your strength, even the language, the might be your networking with the community. So what you think as an ethnic entrepreneurs are your strengths? So your strength and how you deal with your challenges with your strategies. So any strategies and strength, I really want to highlight to the audience that it's not just like we are like weeping like we are ethnic entrepreneurs. No. What are your challenges and what are your strengths to deal with these like barriers or discrimination? So one by one, please, Junaid, you can share like any of your strength or strategies to deal with this ecosystem and what are your strengths and strategies?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to add in there. I just want to say that this, I know it can come across quite confusing, the whole sort of subject area that we've been discussing today, because at one point we're saying there's barriers to inclusion, and then what do we want? We want inclusion. Well, then what do we want? We want separate places, and then we want separate places, and then we want those places to be included within those places, and then we want for people to be treated equally, but then we want for our individual sort of minority ethnic personalities and backgrounds to be included. It just all sounds very, very contradictory. And I think part of this sort of discussion, I think it's good that this sort of panel discussions been taking place together. But there's much more to be done in terms of communicating that message to mainstream audiences, because, quite frankly speaking, people are very, very confused, and there's a bit of a environment where people feel uneasy about asking questions about how they can understand better how to actually work with sort of other entrepreneurs. So strength and strategies, I just think that there's something that's worked quite well for mainstream organizations is that they have established organizations, power, clout, connections, networks, and the sort of flow of policymakers to money, to this and that and sort of thing. And that's a very, very great strength for mainstream organizations. So we need to, from our organizational perspective, we have something to look at, which is sort of strategic positioning, which is two specific areas. One that we do very well, and we don't understand that we do very well as minority ethnic communities, and one that we need to do much better. The one that we don't do very well, start with that, is as far as that's covered, is networking. We don't have established organizations and infrastructure that are places that we would want to interact with. And from my own perspective, that means that we need to create those organizations. We can't allow other mainstream organizations to lead in them because they're not coming from the perspective of what you actually want to do with that network. So therefore, the power we need to come from our own communities to create the infrastructures and communities that are led by the way that we want to do it. And I think that onus is on us rather than the mainstream organizations. The second thing, which is something incredibly powerful, which I'm very proud that we have within our community, is as an Asian person, if I have to meet another Asian person, to give a very brief story, so just to contextualize a little bit. I went to a dinner with a few guys. There was a guy there. His name's Bobby. He owns a few restaurants in the east coast of Scotland. And we spent maybe an hour and a half together. I said to Bobby about the first part with the network part. I said, Bobby, the second thing that we've got, I said, we've met for about an hour and a half just randomly on a Thursday afternoon. The thing that we have within our community is if I never see Bobby again for another 4 years, so Bobby's Indian, he's got a bunch of patients are both in Strathclyde, older gentleman in his 50s. If I don't see Bobby for another 3 years or 4 years, I'm going to spend an hour and a half together on a random Thursday. I don't even know Bobby's surname. And I bump into him in a random place, say in Manchester. Bobby will come to me and hug me like a long lost brother that I've never seen, that he's not seen in a very long time. That ability that we have within Asian communities, diverse communities, is something that's exceptionally strong. That I very much hope that Scotland as a whole can grow that again. I don't believe that's something that's generally kind of the case within Glasgow. I mean, I grew up in Cumbernauld. If you're from Cumbernauld and you're second, third generation Cumbernauld, you do have that connection with one another. And I hope that's something that Scotland revitalises as well for mainstream organisations, that connection. So when you put them together, we need to improve the networking. And the fact that we have this amazing resource as a community, then there is an exceptional amount that could take place. Like, for example, pretty much everyone who's from a diverse background in this room has interacted with our organisation through one means or another. And because of that little connection and relationships that we have. So networking, closeness of relationships, better way to put it.
Okay, thank you, Junaid. So, Darish, what do you think? What are your strengths and strategies?
I think in general, diverse entrepreneurs tend to have different thinking just because of the background they've came from or just the way they've been brought up is different. And so that just naturally creates, like slightly different thinking patterns, but also, like slightly different solutions as well. So I think that diversity of thought is very much needed. And it's having those bright, new, different, sometimes crazy ideas is what we're looking for in this world. So yeah, I think that's a huge strength.
Thank you. So, Simran, you are also now in. So, what do you think? What are your strategies and what are your strengths as an ethnic entrepreneur, which you can use to reap some benefits and fruits because of your identity? So, what do you think? What are your strengths and what are even the strategies you are using?
If I have to name my biggest strength, I would call it my family. But I know that does not answer that question. So, in terms of finance, when we are building, our core strength is the understanding of the subject and knowing the root cause problem. Where and how we have seen the problem in multiple geographies and coming it all together to see for a global vision, that's something I think so would be my biggest strength. Access to different kind of people, different level and knowledge of people is a very big strength. But knowing the grassroots level problem and having to face them on first-handedly is something I think so would be my biggest strength here.
Great, thank you. Monika, what do you think? What are your strengths and strategies?
I think it's also about building your own brand, like telling people exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it, show them the passion that you have. Like, I think those are things that will stick to people. Like, people connect and go with you not because of it could be just a vibe that you have together. They might be willing to just join you. So be passionate and be confident about what you're trying to do and also why you're doing it, because people buy in the why, not what generally. So I think just be your authentic self. Say what you are doing, why you're doing it all the time, so people remember, and just remember you as who you are.
Brilliant. I love how you brought up authenticity. That's one of I call it my superpowers. I just like being who I am. My other power is lived experience. So I'm a middle-aged, visible Muslim woman.
cover a lot of generations, from a mother, a daughter, a wife, a sister, and just father. So I got those lived experience, and I use social media platforms to educate and help people understand the difference between culture and religion. And that voice is the power that can be heard in the world. I use platforms like podcasting to tell my story and to educate other people. And I am writing a book called This is Culture, Not Religion. So just the power that you have, use it. Why not? And build that confidence. So that's me. Thank you, Sabah.
Thank you. Thank you all. And my next question is, what advice, like some of you have given a very good advice, like Janet talk about infrastructure and the Simran talk about like she just don't want to be judged on the color. She just want to be like feel and visible in any networking just as an entrepreneur. So if any of you else like want to give any advice, like we should like change as an individual in the university, in the policy, what advice, if any of you want to add, like what advice would you give to those like us in the room? Like to make the ecosystem better.
So we launched something called Mastermind back in August of last year, which Adarsh is also a part of. And I suppose we've been speaking to universities and sort of other incubators and accelerators as to why we've kind of created it. And the issue that we kind of saw is universities do a fantastic amount of engaging diverse and international students onto their programs and to encourage entrepreneurship, which many come from those various backgrounds. For example, Darsha said that his own father was an entrepreneur, therefore he became an entrepreneur. But the issue that we're kind of saying is that the main thing that these, for example, specific like universities run is that a lot of what you gain from this is community. And what's happening is that there's a lot of diverse entrepreneurs who aren't feeling that community. Does that mean it's systemic racism? Like, no. It doesn't mean any of that sort of thing. It just means that they're just not feeling the community. Therefore, it's something that we just kind of we saw. So what we created was, but that has a compounding effect, which is if you're in an environment where you're not feeling that sort of social connection amongst the community that you're in, so you're building a tech startup and you're part of a university sort of group or cohort, and generally what happens in diverse students is kind of speak to the diverse students, then you're not really part of the wider sort of social network, which is fine, right? You're not part of the wider social network, but then because you're not part of the wider social network, you're not involved in those day-to-day sort of conversations and things that take place. Because you're not involved in that, you're not as tapped into what's taking place. Then you don't hear of the opportunities that take place. Because you don't hear of the opportunities taking place, then you can't be involved in those opportunities. Because you're not involved in those opportunities, you aren't being platformed. Because you're not in platforms, you don't get that visibility. Because you don't get the visibility, then when you approach, obviously, the larger organizations or opportunities, and they don't know who you are, obviously, there's going to be a lack of excitement between, for example, somebody who you've been hearing with their entrepreneur journey for the last year and a half, and they're creating a tech startup of, I don't know, like something to do with, I don't use a Darsha, don't use a Darsha unless it's the opposite of in fact, do the example, right? But you get the whole point when we're getting there.
So my advice for institutions is to build strong pillars. And what actually I mean by that is ask the right questions with the right intention. Understand why you're helping ethnic minorities. Why are you doing what you're doing? And please don't make it a tick box exercise, because a lot of institutions just tick box and that's it. When we talk about building the pillars, we need to look at your staffing. What resources do the staff have in order to help the future generation, in order to help other people grow? So they have to work on them, and they need to have that extra funding in order to outsource the resources to build those strong pillars.
I think it's also important for us when we are working with youth on entrepreneurship is that one really successful project that we had in Asia Pacific was that for all the winning teams, when they join into the global competition or regional competition, they actually break off into mixed groups. So basically like different people from different nationalities, say like you're representing Thailand, you go with a person from like Japan, and then you mix those teams up and have them compete. And that actually sparks that kind of conversation of multilingual, different cultures. And that actually gives them that empathy and idea to kind of talk in a way that, yeah, you're all winners, but how can you build something stronger and better overall? I think that is also something we can do in the ecosystem, is like for any of the team projects or for anything that is building, create that uncomfortable space for all the different youth, not just like, oh, we're only targeting the minority, or we're, like maybe make it more integrated as a whole to kind of build it up together, because we do need that voice to be heard on both ends, because that's also part of the education that we're trying to build. And I believe without that exchange, it's hard, because yes, institution, you can have rules. It will still become a bit of tick the box. But if you don't actually have that integration, it's still hard. So I would encourage any activities that's possible, build that opportunity to say that you have to have like different representation overall. Like make it broad so that it doesn't feel like discrimination in any way or ticking the box. But that would be something I would definitely encourage and suggest.